ruined. And that actually, I think, happened to me. Because I would read Prabhupada's books and I'd be so attracted by the way he was presenting bhakti. And then he would just like smash impersonalism, and I would think, I just can't read this anymore, because I had some still attraction for it. And they said, I'm sorry, we can't talk to you. We're just going to the Beacon Hill Park to have our lunch, to have prasadam. So, I'm waiting to meet people, and I'm just, okay. And they said, go down the street, there's another devotee on the corner there, he'll talk to you. So I kind of eagerly went down there, found a devotee on the street. He was this brand new brahmachari, just shaved up probably that day. Saffron robes, and I tried to ask him some questions, and he couldn't really answer my questions. And he pulled a book out of his pocket. It was out of his book bag. It was Elevation to Krishna.
And a BTG.
And a BTG. And he said, these will answer all your questions. So I just opened my wallet. Whatever was in my wallet, I just gave him everything, all that cash. I don't know why. And then I tried to ask him another question. And then he said to me, well, my Sankirtan leader said I shouldn't talk to anyone for more than 2 minutes. And he was just turning around and starting to walk away. I just couldn't believe this was happening. And something happened when he was walking away. Have you ever been really close to a thunderbolt? When thunder is just a boom, like, if you're very close, after that, everything will seem completely silent. So even though we were on a busy street corner, that's a real vivid memory of that. It was just like the thunderbolt hit, everything was quiet. It was like everything on the streets disappeared. And I could see him walking away. It was just like he had a red seeker blowing in the wind and his orange robes. And I just had this really epiphany that he was the representative of a very great man. It was like a really powerful thing. And then, so then we went back to where we lived on the island, and I started reading again Bhagavad Gita. And I think because I did some seva by giving some Lakshmi, Krishna gave some reciprocation, because I came to the verse Vitaraga Bhayakroda, where Krishna says you have to become free from attachment, fear, and anger. And in that purport, Prabhupada describes the fear that Krishna is talking about is the fear of a personal spiritual existence. And he said, because in this material world, we've been so conditioned by everything being temporary, full of ignorance and miserable. He said, if you hear about eternal spiritual existence with form, he said, you have no reference point for that at all. You will not be able to understand it because you have absolutely no reference to that. So you'll carry that material conditioned understanding into what you're trying to understand from the spiritual reality, and you will not be able to understand it. And then he said, until you hear from a pure devotee, he said they can actually explain to you the nature of the spiritual realm. I immediately realized that's what was holding me back from complete surrendering, was that fear. And I think after that, we were in the temple probably 2 weeks later. So.
Well, there was in the BTG, there was an invitation to like the Sunday program. Yeah. And we were working part-time at this health food store, and they had wanted us to go with the business van and go and pick up some organic apples from the Okanagan. And so we had to pass through Vancouver, so we thought, okay, we'll go to the Sunday feast. Mm-hmm. So we went to the Sunday feast, and at that time in Vancouver, they had Jagannath deities and a picture of Panchatattva. And somehow or other, the temple president got up and said, I don't usually explain this at the Sunday feast. He says, but this is Jagannath. He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And this is his brother, and this is his sister. And I thought, oh, okay. I just completely accepted. This is God. Like, very unusual form. But, like, I don't know. I was previously an atheist. So, you know, and then until we started reading the, you know, impersonalist philosophy. And then they were saying that God is a white light. So I was thinking, okay, God's the white light. And I remember we were reading this book by Yogananda, Paramahamsa Yogananda, Autobiography of a Yogi. And in there he talked about there'd be these cart festivals. They would go down the street and they would be the processions with the dolls of God. So I somehow put it together that they said this was, but I imagined it like a little kid's wagon with some little dolls, and not like Rath Yatra. I didn't know what it was because I didn't have any reference, right? So I guess those things kind of piece through. And it's funny how, I don't know if it actually says it in Autobiography of a Yogi, but I remember it saying, God is either personal or impersonal, and the personal is the best. That's all I remember from the whole big fat book of it, So, like Krishna's got your path chalked out, It's like, I don't know if it's in there, but somehow or other. So I was able to put it together. And then they said, oh, it looks quite interesting. Why don't you stay overnight? You've got a van, we'll wake you up for Mangal Arti. We have a nice thing. So we went and we slept in the van in the parking lot, and then like 3:30, someone knocks on the window. If you want to take a shower, we'll show you where, And then, so we went to Mangal Arti, and then they showed us how to chant japa, and they gave us some beads. And so then we chanted, and then there was like class in the program, and they wanted us to stay for dinner, for lunch, breakfast. And everybody had services. There was always a half-hour cleanup before breakfast. Everybody cleaned the whole temple. It was like everybody just took that half hour. So they said, you can just keep chanting. So somehow that first day, I think we chanted 16 rounds. Oh, wow. There's just like enough time. And then we went off to get the fruit. And when we came back, we stopped again. And then we started coming over for a couple of weekends. And then we said, forget that, let's just move in. Yeah. So that was in September. And then, so we'd read Krishna book, we read Bhagavad Gita, we read quite a few things, and it was kind of, So when we moved in the temple, we would have Krishna book classes, and they would ask questions, but I knew all the answers because I'd read them. So I said, how come they don't know it? They already live here, But anyway, so then Srila Prabhu was coming to Los Angeles to visit in December. And so there were some devotees that were going to get initiated. And so the temple president says, well, would you like to get initiated too? It's a little bit, usually he would wait for 6 months for somebody to come. He said, but Prabhupada's going to be there, and then you could get personally initiated. So do you want to do it a little bit early? We said, sure.
So we all, one morning, everyone got up, the whole temple, except maybe 2 devotees, piled in a van.
You just take all the back seats out.
Yeah.
You just all sit on the ground on mats or something.
Everyone's
right?
crammed in the van, and then the van's just starting to back up. And a devotee stuck his head out of the temple window and said, stop the van, Prabhupada's not coming to Los Angeles.
Oh. They got a mess.
Oh. So we dragged ourselves back in the temple, and the next morning, right after Mangal Arti, the temple gets a phone call. Srila Prabhupada's in Los Angeles. Everyone jumped in the van, and poof, off we went to Los Angeles. And it was quite, it was interesting the first time we saw Prabhupada, because from his books and everything you'd heard about Prabhupada and his voice on the tapes, I just had this expectation that Prabhupada would be someone with real big physical stature. Like actually there's that picture there on the right. I think devotees they're up on a step, so they look even taller. But Prabhupada was actually fairly short by physical stature. So when he came into the temple, my first thought was,
you didn't expect him to be.
Yeah, I didn't expect him to be that.
Because he has such a presence. That's,
yeah. Like at first I was thinking, I was a little surprised that he was short, but then all of a sudden, it just like this wave just came over the whole temple just from his presence, and everyone just offered their dandavats to Prabhupada. I think it was so powerful. Mm-hmm. And we got to hear Prabhupada give class several mornings. And then there was a big initiation ceremony in which I think 10 devotees maybe from Vancouver got initiated, and a few other, maybe almost 20 devotees in total. And the morning of initiation, Prabhupada gave a very interesting lecture. It was about the annihilation of the Yadu dynasty, in which is described how the whole Yadu dynasty, they went to Prabhasa, and there were some long stories, some iron reeds grew there. They were actually looked like cattails, but they were actually made of iron. And because of drinking some wine, they became intoxicated and had this big pastime fight, and they went back to Godhead. But Prabhupada was describing the wine in the class. You should say that in the story.
So in the verse said, and they all drank some wine made of purified rice. Prabhupada says, purified rice? It's not purified. And says, what is that word? And someone says, putrefied. Yes, putrefied. Change that. They had the wrong word in the thing. Because you don't get drunk on purified rice, right? It's putrefied rice. So Prabhupada says you can make a very nice wine from rice. And if you distill it further, you get first-class brandy. I'm going, okay. And I'm just going to make my vows, no, So anyway, it's a fact you can, but it doesn't mean we drink it. So then when we got initiated that same day, and there was one devotee, and he'd had a little bit of a hard time giving up smoking, but he'd done it, and so the temple president told Prabhupada, well, he previously had a bit of a hard time with smoking, but he's not doing it now, and so can you accept him, And so when he was a little bit older than the rest of us, we were 20, and he was probably, I don't know how old he was.
He was probably...
You think he was 40?
No, I think he was maybe in his 50s, maybe.
By
he
that
was quite
time?
a bit older. Yeah, he was quite a bit older.
Okay. Anyway, so he came up for his beads, and Prabhupada was like kind of extra gentle with him, I think he even like kind of touched his hand when he gave him the beads. And so he's giving the 4 regulative principles, no illicit sex, no meat eating, no gambling, and no intoxication. And Prabhupada says, and that means no smocking. Smocking.
We still have our initiation beads that Prabhupada gave us.
Wow.
I never lose sight of them.
So, somebody has other questions?
I had these 2 questions.
The same ones?
How do that?
I had this question then. How did you meet Prabhupada?
Okay.
You always have questions.
Yeah, I was kind of a little bit awkward because I keep on asking questions, but
It comes in handy at these moments. It's handy at these moments when no one else has something. You save the day.
yeah, see, I'm a bit useful. My question is, Prabhupada, I was not reading, I was listening to this lecture a few days ago, and then Prabhupada said we should never be envious of other devotees. And then he mentioned a verse from 11.17.27 about that Guru is a representative of Krishna and that we should never envy him. So my question is, even Bhaktivinoda Thakur sees in his budget that, especially for souls like us in Kali Yuga, it's so easy to get that Guru Abhiman, although we don't have anything, like we don't have proper amount of knowledge, we still get that, okay, this is a newcomer. And at some point also Chaitanya Mahaprabhu mentions that
Everybody should become Guru,
be
yeah.
Guru, but at the same time how to not get that ego or that I am a Guru, and then because once we get that ego, then we start envying other devotees. So
Prabhupada actually said this, that how an advanced devotee will actually think that he's neophyte. And even Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he's a self-realized soul, but in his bhajans, he's saying these prayers like he's a conditioned soul or very a neophyte in spiritual life. But he's doing that for our benefit, to realize like how to grow in spiritual life. And so it's important to understand that if we're thinking we're advanced, we're actually neophyte. And if we were actually advanced, we would be thinking we're neophyte. Because if you always think, well, I'm a neophyte, then you're protected from false ego. If you're always saying, how can you learn from others? But everyone's trying to teach you something. Even the Bhakti leader, you, from one perspective, you might be more advanced, but from another perspective, Krishna's put you in that position also to learn something.
all of questions.
It's so easy to think that we're a little bit better than somebody else, or we know a little bit more than someone else. That's one of the traps of material life. Because that's why we're in material existence, because we want to lord it over, right? We want to be the Lord. But it's not a fact. We're actually all equal. So they may be the newcomer and you might know something about Krishna, but you're still of equal value. And you're just sharing something that you have that you find useful to you with another person so they can also benefit. So it's not that you're better than them. You just have something wonderful that you would like to share because you got value from it. It's not that you're better. And you know, when you look at advancement along the line, okay, you join here and maybe we joined 50 years ago, so like you're here on the spectrum, maybe we're here, but the goal's way over here, you know, it's kind of irrelevant, you know. A few inches ahead doesn't, you know, there's a long ways to go. Some people can go faster and, you know, pass you. Part 2.
The follow-up. I personally listen to a lot of bhajan. I love listening to different type of bhajans from Bhakti Vinod Thakur, Uttama Prabhu, and most of them are on humility. But there is a really slight, or probably there is a big difference, but for me, I think there is a really thin line between humility and what do we call that?
Low self-esteem.
Low self-esteem. And personally, I have heard a lot of lectures from Uttama Prabhu. He's always encouraging, but at the same time, I hear Narottam Das Thakur sing or Bhakti Vinod Thakur, like, there is nobody more fallen than me in the whole world. I cannot now imitate them, because if I start doing that, I won't be feeling it. But, so I'm just confused that, isn't it like a little bit contradicting?
Well, humility, I'll just say one thing. Humility just means you think of yourself less, not that you think less of yourself.
Write that down.
Actually, that's what my mentor Prabhu told me. But still.
So it means you think of yourself less, not that you think less of yourself.
So you know who you are, but you're thinking more about others, how what you can do to benefit them, rather than saying that, oh, I'm more advanced than you. Somebody said to Prabhupada, oh, Prabhupada, I'm the most fallen. Prabhupada's reply was, you're not the most anything. he could sense false pride. Just, I saw him on somebody. It was in actually Los Angeles. We were taking initiation the day before. There was a kirtan when Prabhupada came in, and somebody just grabbed the drum and just started booming out of kirtan. And you could tell it was felt just a little bit of ego in it. And Prabhupada said, yes, okay, Sudama, you lead kirtan. He wanted someone else to lead kirtan, because Prabhupada could just sense a little bit of false ego. And it can be very, very, it can be gross, it can be subtle, and I think it can even be like nanoparticle. In the pastime of Sudama Brahma, if you're familiar with that, how he took the chip rice to see Krishna, and he wanted to give it to Krishna, but he was so embarrassed he just hid it, and then eventually Krishna took it and gave him this reward of this opulent palace. And it's described by one of the acharyas that one reason that Krishna gave, well, there's several reasons why he gave Sudama Brahman such an opulent palace. And one was that Sudama Brahman, he gave more than his means. He actually begged from someone else to get some chipped rice to give to Krishna. So he gave even more than he had. So Krishna was thinking, how can I give him something more than I have? So he gave him a palace that was greater than the palatial buildings of Lord Indra. And one of the acharyas also describes that Krishna saw that Sudama Brahman had just this little teeny fragment of false pride in his renunciation, because he was super austere. He was living in this straw hut that had leaking roof, and he was eating was austere, so austere you could see all the veins in his body. So he was like really, really austere. And one of the acharyas said that he had just this minute tinge, just like a nano little particle of false pride in his renunciation. So to purify him of that little tinge of attachment to that renunciation, Krishna awarded him with this unlimited opulence, so he could enjoy that for the rest of his life and become purified of that attachment to renunciation, and then go back to Godhead. So it means that, boy, there's a lot of cleansing of the heart we have to do. Like Kunticha Marjana, they cleaned again, like looking for little smaller little particles to clean. So we can never actually stop trying to cleanse our heart.
And humility.
She's got a question, but she's a little slow on the draw there. She hesitated for a second.
Humility is part of prema, because when you have love for God, you see He's so great, and you're just naturally humble about that, right? So they kind of go, the more love of Godhead you have, the more humble you're going to become. And then when you become a little bit more humble, you can see that greatness in God.
Mother, as you mentioned that, sorry, just one last follow-up. As you mentioned that humility is speaking about ourselves less. But I actually, at that time, Brihat Prabhu told me, I got convinced. But then, as I mentioned, I'll keep on listening to new songs once I learn them. So I see 4 or 5 songs where he's mentioning that I am this. And I mean, it's more like thinking about myself to be lower. Putting himself in a lower position, like Amito Durjana Ati, it could be one. And then we say, Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Daya Karo More. And then, yeah, and then Gauranga Karuna Garu, and many other songs. So that's why I was a little bit confused.
So, but humility, it means you have the inherent respect for everybody else. You don't lose that, right? So you see everybody else so respectfully that you think of them in a nice way, right? So you don't lose sight of that. Because the opposite is pride, you're better, right?
And if you have that true mood of humility, then you're situated in your constitutional glory. It's like ironic.
Hare Krishna. My question is a bit different, and I think it can help a lot of people here. Or people. So you're part of the Gihasta Vision team, and some of us are new, some of us have been in the ashram for quite a while. We're at a stage where we are like getting into, like we're growing up, right? And then a lot of feelings develop at this age, right? Like eventually you get married, but like, and a lot of Prabhupada disciples also joined the movement at that age. So it's very hard to like follow 4 ranks, like especially the 4th one. So how
not once you get married?
Before that, like before that.
Okay. But then you come in a nice association like this, and yes, Krishna fixes it for you.
That's true. That's true. But like you said, it was very hard for the way to give up smoking.
Right.
So then, how did Prabhupada help those devotees? That's my question.
Prabhupada was very, very patient, like Shama Sundar. He had attachment to smoking, and there's a pastime in San Francisco where he was carving the first Jagannath deities, and he would actually smoke cigarettes in between when he was like carving. And Prabhupada came in the room one day where he was carving Jagannath, and there was like a cigarette on, I don't know.
No, the package was on the head of Jagannath.
Oh, on the head of the arm or something. Yeah.
On the arm, yeah.
Yeah, on the arm. And then Prabhupada walked in the room, and Shamasundar realized that the cigarettes were on the deities. Oh, Prabhupada, I'm sorry. And Prabhupada said something like, think nothing of it, just smoke 1 less a day.
Did Prabhupada flick it off with his finger or with the cane? I can't remember. One of the
I don't remember that part.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
Malati tells it sometimes.
I just
Yeah.
So Prabhupada,
fortunate to see that place.
he accepted everyone for where they were at. Prabhupada,
He just wanted you to increase.
Yeah, he wanted you to increase, and he never was judgmental. He was always encouraging devotees to move forward.
One of our best friends, he lives at Sharanagati, he joined here, and he's smoking a pack of cigarettes every day.
Wow.
And then joined the temple and just knocked it off.
Yeah.
Started to instead of this, it was like he's a real hero. I mean, honestly.
Yeah, it's lots of devotees tell me that they just can give things up.
Yeah, they're just looking for an opportunity.
Yeah, just the potency of devotional service.
I guess the association helps a lot.
Yeah, for sure. Because outside, the association that's what you do. And that's where your pleasure is.
And you have a tight association here. In those days, Vancouver Temple, the Gerrard Street Temple, is like 35, 40 devotees living in a small 2 or 3 bedroom house. And at night, room this size, it would be just like wall to wall. Like I used to do deity service at night. I'd be the last one to go to sleep. I would have to get my sleeping bag out of the closet and leave in the hallway, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to step in the room to get my sleeping bag. There was that many people sleeping there. It was packed.
You guys have got it good.
Yeah, it was like a,
Man.
yeah,
We put our sleeping bag on the floor and no pillow.
yeah, yeah. And everyone got up from Mangalarti, because like you'd get stepped on if you didn't get up.
Your only excuse for not going to Mangalartik is being dead. I remember I got pneumonia after we came back from getting initiated.
Yeah.
Somehow or other, you just kind of like get up and you braid your hair. And I would sit on the stairs where I could see the deities of Mangalartik, and then I'd go back to, I was just so exhausted. When you have pneumonia, but you had to go, I don't know, I just felt you have to go to Mangalartik, right?
That was a little extreme.
Well, it was that.
But this is another extreme where.
Yeah. Well, I didn't have to go across the street. I just had to go, a little bit down, sit on the stairs, and go back to bed. It's not like I had to.
Everything here is all under one roof, So.
It was there too. Yeah. It instilled though that urgency that it was necessary.
Yeah. That's right. We were in that mode.
And the mood was, we actually had money. We could have gone to India when we joined to see Srila Prabhupada, but we just were convinced that Prabhupada, by the enthusiasm of the devotees, that he was in that building.
Yeah.
No doubt. We just felt it. It was so powerful. Every morning they would do, it was before we started Guru Puja, they would do a little kirtan before the picture of Prabhupada and then greet the deities. And just before the kirtan, someone would go in the hallway and say, Srila Prabhupada's coming. And everyone would run into the temple. There'd be this huge kirtan.
I'm talking about the association outside. I landed in London, and as soon as I did, people go through the customs, right after that, it's all liquor.
Oh yeah,
And people are just going wild. And it's not one bottle, it's several bottles,
They're buying.
Yeah, buying crazy. Like they suddenly became enlightened. They lit up. The same thing from London to Toronto here, same thing. You're just trying to get some drinks, And they're expensive drinks.
And it's so interesting. You can't take it on the plane, but if you buy it after you go through, they keep it for you. They put it on the other side, right?
Yeah.
It's like they get your money. Yeah.
That's the kind of association you get. And people's idea of enjoyment is get drunk, take some poison, and that's the only way you can enjoy it. Even people, they'll propose only after they've had a few drinks to each other, isn't it? Like they can't even handle dealing with each other. They have to be so delusioned.
You have a question?
So this question mostly people ask with the end. So like most of the Prabhupada disciples, they served like for more than 50 years. So I would like to ask Maharaj also, like what's the essence you learned from the Prabhupada in this 50 years time?
What's the essence you learned?
Essence of the like Krishna conscious journey of this like till 50 years. So what's the essence thing you learned from that?
The essence of it all?
Yes.
Well, real love. Real love is not a physical thing, it's spiritual.
Always think of
Heart touching. And when you compare what we're doing here to people outside, it's well, there's no comparison. It's just such a higher enjoyment. You can check things around and say, everything looks pretty bland to me after you've chanted and had the best food, the best music, and the best company, and best philosophy, you know. You compare the notes with what's going on out there, it's just, you can't even compare notes, really.
I think Prabhupada summed it up. Chant and be happy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And always
You just
think-
have to get your chanting to the point where you actually feel that happiness. You can't just do it rotely, though.
and always think of Krishna and become his devotee. And what are the things you can do to always think of Krishna and become his devotee? That was the last. Uddhava had a discussion with Krishna. He was the last person to see Krishna before Krishna left this world. And the Uddhava Gita was spoken there. And then Uddhava was walking away from Krishna. He knew he'd never see Krishna again. And it's described that he heard Krishna speaking within his heart, a verse that Uddhava and Arjuna often discussed. They would discuss something that Krishna said on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. And it was the verse, always think of me, become my devotee. So that was Uddhava's last thing he heard from Krishna.
I think my question is more related to Devanshi. So,
We always get the hot potato.
during Prabhupada's time also, devotees like female devotees, and they used to live in one ashram.
There were separate rooms. We were living in the same temple
But it's
building.
same building.
Same
Yeah.
roof.
Same building,
Same
yeah.
roof. Mhm.
Yeah.
So now also we have the same setting.
Mhm.
So how were devotees not getting distracted by getting attracted to each other, then just being so focused in service and so focused towards Krishna, then getting into any of this? I mean, I'm sure devotees they might have gotten married and like that, but not many stories I've heard about anything illicit or anything like that happening. So, like, what was that motivation?
Well, when you live closely with someone, you also start to see all their faults. So it kind of keeps it balanced. I don't actually remember that many people matching up in the temple. Only when the temple president would say, like maybe somebody said they wanted to get married, and the temple president would say, how about this one or that one? Then you start looking, okay, maybe this, Thank God I found somebody first, but
It was, I think, in most of the temples in the 60s and 70s for a good period of time, it was very much a family atmosphere. And we kind of saw each other as like brothers and sisters. And it was very respectful. And it wasn't like devotees were constantly like not looking at the women.
that came later.
Yeah.
It wasn't very West Coasty. I think it was a little bit East Coasty. It's like, the brahmacharis were getting a little fanatic. But it wasn't like that in our temple. And I think you had less mishaps when it's not quite so. Yeah.
It was in 75 that we had the first upheaval.
But we didn't.
Right under.
Yeah. See, we didn't experience that over there. And also in Vancouver, there's a lot of people who are already married. And so there was like, it was just a more family atmosphere. And there's these like kids in the temple running around making so much noise. My husband says, oh God, let's never have kids. It was just like, we did, but it kind of made the reality. You had a question?
Yes, I have two questions. So, like, as you mentioned, like we all know association is very important, especially in this part. So, would you say that I feel like association is more like the grace of God and
It's like the what?
grace of
grace of
mercy
God, yeah.
God,
Mhm.
because without that, I don't think we get that association. So, like for those who do not get that association or who are not blessed to have that, so like how would they progress then? Or
It's more difficult.
Well, you do have Prabhupada's books. We always have association there. Like sometimes you have some question, and you just open it up and like it opened right up to your answer. I mean, everybody has that experience, isn't it? Yeah. You're talking like people. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah.
It's quite interesting how Krishna consciousness spread in the Soviet Union. And that was just by Prabhupada went there with Shama Sundar and one other devotee and a few books. I went to this book fair, met one devotee who he got initiated.
Anantashanti?
Anantashanti. And from there, somehow Krishna consciousness underground started to spread. People would actually photograph every single page, like of Prabhupada's book, Bhagavad Gita, and then they'd bind it together like with string or something. So they would make the books out of like photographs. They would actually develop it in their homes because you wouldn't send it to a lab because somebody might let the KGB know that you've got some improper book. And these books spread all over Russia, and they made all kinds of devotees.
And then they would meet together to talk about it.
Mhm.
So when you kind of get attracted to the philosophy, you want to find other people who want to read it with you. And so you look for that association. And I see that if you want more association, you kind of pray for it, and Krishna will send somebody. And you can also ask people to mentor you and things like that. So you can get mentors. They don't even have to be living where you are.
Like where you are, you've got weekly gatherings, right? And so that makes a difference. But yeah, you can get online with some of the classes and do a weekend stay here.
I also see that, like I know somebody asked me about a reading group one time, and we've got more people sometimes, but it's just kind of like four of us, and it's just like the four core people. You just kind of get like-minded, and you just make a nice sangha together, and it's like really enriching just to meet up once a week and do that chanting with those four people that you kind of have a close association with. And so there's many ways to do it. You have the realization its importance, so then you pray for it and look for it and grab it when you see
I
it.
go for that kind of association, when people are young, single, because after you tie a knot, it's game over. Like it's not totally finished, but you just have that freedom to move around and make incredible friends. It's the more difficult later on.
Did you have a second
What are you
question?
guys smiling at?
This side is
He was making a knot.
Did you have a second question?
yes, so I think as Devanshi said, like we are growing up and like there are so many things right now, like so many uncertain where we'll get a job or
Yeah.
a marriage eventually and all that. So for you, I mean, what is the right time, or how do you decide that okay now I want a guru and I want to get initiated, or like how does that come? Like for you, the very first day only you chanted 16 and then it happened
Well, I mean, we'd been looking at other spiritual practices before, right? And it didn't lead us there. But then, so I guess every step took you there. Somehow you want the real thing, right? So then you gravitate towards it, and Krishna's going to show it to you, like according to how much you really want a guru.
And there's a
They
point,
come, you know.
you may get the seed of the creeper devotional service, and it may not actually fructify for some time. There was a gentleman who became a devotee in Edmonton, and he was a professional photographer, as I remember talking to him. And he said he'd received a book from a devotee quite a few years before, and it was just put on a bookshelf and forgotten about. And he said he was sitting in his living room one day, and he was looking at the bookshelf, and he said, I swear that book was glowing.
And he was not on drugs.
No, not on drugs. He said it was glowing. It's just something, and he just pulled it off and started reading it, and it just absolutely clicked for him. So that was the time for him. And that's going to manifest different to everyone, but you'll feel something in your heart when it's time.
So you're trying to figure out which guru to accept? Is that what you're saying? Or
Yeah, like right now, I mean, I'm just a beginner on this part. Just when I think about, like, I'm so grateful. I've been so blessed. I feel that, getting all this association and everything. But then to take this path more seriously, I also have to endeavor and I also have to desire. So that's what I feel it's missing from my side as well, and that's more because of the uncertainty, as I said, like the future. So like when to decide and how to decide, or how does that come within?
One time, Srila Prabhupada, he said, anyone who reads my books is initiated, meaning that the process has started because you developed a connection with Prabhupada. And for all of us, first generation, second generation, third generation, our primary instructing guru is Srila Prabhupada. So we all have a connection with Prabhupada, and disciples after Prabhupada will take initiation from different gurus, but you have a primary relationship with Prabhupada. And if you ever have an opportunity, it would probably be helpful for you to take what's called the Disciples Course. It kind of explains very systematically how the process of initiation works, what it means, how we all have a relationship with Srila Prabhupada, how the succession comes down through different ways, different persons. And many devotees I know who have taken that course, they found it gave them confidence to take initiation. And also they said, especially because it helped them to realize that they also had a relationship with Srila Prabhupada. It's not that they missed the boat, that you all have a relationship with Prabhupada through his books.
so your question is, how do you set the priorities in your life? Because you're trying to find yourself a job, and that's hard, and other things are hard, and you're trying to advance your spiritual life, and which to focus on now, and how to get it all together so that it all falls into place nicely.
Yeah, like that is also an uncertainty, because in future when you have job or when you're married or when you're...
Will you be able to do all the things that you do?
So that commitment.
That's why you actually do need to really want to make that commitment. And when you do want to make that commitment, and you make that commitment, you can do it. I mean, I have 3 kids, and I've chanted all my rounds. And not everybody can do that. I just happen to be a person who can chant fairly quickly, and my kids were good sleepers. So I hit it lucky. And I know people who their kids were just a handful, and it was really hard to chant their rounds. And they understood that it's really important for me right now that I give my kids priority, and I don't resent the chanting, and I do what I can, but my kids are very important. And I see now they have no problem chanting their rounds. So you don't lose it. And like for us, don't mind me. I'm just one of these people. If I have a little bit of emotion, tears come, but it's not a big deal. Just ignore them. When I forgot what I was going to say. When you do make that commitment, Prabhupada would want us to actually be committed. So it's like I feel like I promised Prabhupada I chant, so I do. So I do think that you. So I do think you want to get to that point where you are committed. So then it becomes easier because you have made that commitment, and so you do it. So you do want to get yourself to that point where it's really important to you, and you get that by a combination of association, by reading, and by chanting.
And that's why.
Because when you get that taste for chanting, you do want to make that commitment. If you just do it out of like I'm supposed to, it doesn't hit you the same way.
And that's why Diksha is important, because it solidifies your connection.
Sorry, I chased you away.
Taking Diksha solidifies your connection with the Sampradaya and with Krishna. And so when you take Diksha, you make that vow to chant Hare Krishna 16 rounds. And so you're doing that not just for yourself, but you're doing it because you promised your guru, and you know that Srila Prabhupada wanted you to do this, and that Krishna actually wants you to do that. And Prabhupada actually wrote once that by the blessings of the spiritual master, he said one can do more than they can by their own endeavor. So when we try to please the spiritual master, Krishna sees that. Even though we're very removed from Krishna, we're like little ants on the ground compared to great devotees. But Krishna noticed, here's this little devotee who's trying to please his guru, and Krishna can say, well, I'll help them. I'll give them some determination. I'll give them some strength to do that. And it makes a difference when you are in a space where you can make that commitment. You can actually get empowered.
And I think when you really want to, Krishna can help you by giving you a husband who doesn't make it too hard for you to do it. Krishna will send you the right guy. And if he sends you the guy that makes it hard and is going to give you more determination, either way you'll get more determination. Yeah. I guess I feel a little bit blessed. We kind of decided to do it together, so I didn't have that problem. But I know it is hard for some people.
What's your experience when you chant your absolute best rounds? What's it like?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like your problems that you have in your mind,
Poof.
it's just like,
Yeah. Really.
It's just in your mind. It's
Yeah.
not, the problem is not existing.
Yeah.
It's just your mind playing
Yeah.
games with you.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
You keep your mind engaged, and that don't like force you towards overthinking something,
Yeah.
and you be happy at that time.
Yeah.
So you're saying you stop overthinking and you're just
Yeah.
present in the moment? Is that what you're
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
Good take.
Yeah.
You had your hand up?
I was just saying that like there are two cases in which I chant like the best round. One is like when I'm really, really sad. One is like I'm really, really happy.
Most of the time, unfortunately, we're in between, so our rounds are lousy.
But it's like for the last year, most of my rounds were done in like the first one where like I was really, really sad. Today, like this year, it's like changing, but it's like in the middle. So I think it feels like, I don't know, feel more connected with Krishna. Like
Feel
it
connected.
feels as if you have more strength
Mm.
than you think you ever had.
Mm.
I feel like you're protected.
Mm-hmm.
So either the sadness or the appreciation of the present makes you focus more on Krishna.
Yes, it's like because otherwise we tend to like take shelter of other things because if we
Yeah.
think that this person can help me or this person, but then when it's like nobody can help you, and then when you become like really like okay, Krishna is you're the only one. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. That happens.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
What were you gonna say? She was gonna say something.
For me, it's one of the reasons. Yeah, I'm very sad, or like I feel kind of hopeless about some situation that is, that will decide how my life will look like in 10 years. So that, and the other is when I read and I realize stuff. So it's like something that I didn't know I was looking an answer for. I find an answer for, and I'm like just sitting there. I'm like, wow. And then the next morning when I
Go to chant, it's
I'm
better.
like, oh my God, Krishna, thank you very much. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. I really want to make this connection because I feel that you're guiding me,
Mm-hmm.
and I want that. I'm choosing you.
Yeah.
So I want to chant nice rounds, and I want to just focus on you.
So you,
That's another.
so it feels like you're turning toward Krishna.
Mm-hmm.
And you?
Yeah, I feel very happy when I'm chanting. And it's like I heard this in one of Japa Inspiration by Sachinanda Maharaj. He said, Japa is your personal time with Krishna. So from when I realized this, that it's actually my time, personal time with Krishna, and I want to do it attentively. I want to give Krishna the best of I have, not like if I'm sleepy or like that. So that made me more focused and attentive towards my chanting.
So you feel like you can feel it's the best quality time ever.
Yeah, the best quality time.
Anyone else? All those things that you described, that everything, all your problems, poof, mind just focuses in. You just appreciate that Krishna is like close to you and making arrangements, and like you feel peaceful. That's exactly what it's like to be with Prabhupada. Exact feeling.
You ever notice that you think someone's, when my guru comes or something like that, I'm going to ask them this, that, and the next thing, and then they come and you have no problems because they're there, right? You can ask you a question.
In 1977, we were with Prabhupada for his concluding pastimes, and I actually got to be in Prabhupada's room for about a week and a half, from 4 to 14 hours a day. And it was either kirtan or japa, just like all day. And especially Prabhupada's last several days, one afternoon he said, I just want japa, and I don't sing very nice. So I thought, Prabhupada wants japa, I'll chant japa for Prabhupada. And for several days, I stayed in Prabhupada's room from about 5:30 in the morning, take a break for lunch and evening prasadam, but just chant from in the morning 5:30 till probably 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. I'd be falling asleep, standing up. I was just sitting like a few feet away from Prabhupada and just chanting Prabhupada, like japa the whole day. And that was my experience, exactly what you described. And if people ask me now, what was it like to be with Prabhupada? I just say, just chant your rounds attentively. You will have that exact experience. Because Prabhupada said, once he was going to India and the devotees were lamenting Prabhupada's leaving, and Prabhupada said, I'm chanting and your chanting will always be connected by the chanting. So you actually experience Prabhupada when you chant. Because you're connected to the Sampradaya through japa.
And to Krishna.
And to Krishna, yeah.
Go ahead.
So, I'm not sure if all of us are facing this thing, but personally, in case of me, and a few of us might be facing this, is sometimes we are under under the three modes. Most of the times we are under the three modes of material nature, and sometimes we get under the mode of ignorance. And what happens is we become too lazy sometimes that we start procrastinating things, and what happens is it starts increasing. Oh, okay, I'm done with my probably I'll make a schedule tomorrow, or I'm done with my breakfast. I have 1 hour. Instead of doing my reading, I'll do it in the evening. I'll just have a short nap, or after lunch. Oh, I have this big time till the next season starts. I'll sleep, or I'll just scroll my phone a little bit. And same thing with sleeping. The times keep on going late, late, late. So, what is that which helps you to avoid being on the lazy side?
I think realizing that Prabhupada...
You have to ask him. I don't know. I'm like you, but he's more regulated.
In the Bhagavad Gita, 14th chapter, Prabhupada talks exactly about that, how the modes of material nature, they compete for supremacy. Sometimes you get up to goodness, and then ignorance pulls you down. Maybe passion pulls you up a little bit, ignorance pulls you down, then goodness kind of rescues you. And that's like sadhana bhakti, we're up and down. And Prabhupada says in the one purport in that chapter that by practice, one can develop the mode of goodness. So at least if we realize that's happening, that's sadhana bhakti. If you don't realize that's happening and you're just enmeshed in passion and ignorance and you're not even aware where you're at, that's conditioned life. So even being aware of the fact we're in the modes, that's an important start. And then so from there we just have to realize we're aiming for the mode of goodness and try to notice like how much a day, was I actually in goodness, how much in passion, how much in ignorance. And
How did I feel each day?
yeah, how did you feel?
Like those days that you slip up, right? At the end of the day, you're not very fired up. But the days when you kept to your schedule and you snuck in the extra reading, you felt good, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you just need to notice the difference, and then you're going to
you're
make
going to
your
gravitate.
choices.
You're going to gravitate towards goodness because the taste is so much better than ignorance and passion.
It's hard to break out, but I find you just have to do one thing, and then you get going again. Just I blew it, I'll keep blowing up. But all you got to do is just make that little turn the other way. Read something or have a kirtan with somebody, and you can change. Make the U-turn.
One of the strictest devotees I know in his sadhana is a god brother who lives in a city about 2 hours from us. He has a very responsible job, does amazing work helping young people. No other devotees there. He's been living there for over 20 years. He gets very little association. He gets up every morning, 16 rounds, worships his deities, offers all his prasadam, chants his gayatris like clockwork. No association. And he's just able to do that because he said he realizes if I don't do that, I'm finished. Everything's finished. So even no association is possible. It's not easy with no association, but somehow he maintains his enthusiasm for the practice just by realizing its importance.
And then he listens to Prabhupada lectures.
Yeah,
and
listens
that
to
gives
Prabhupada
you.
lectures a lot. Probably.
When is it ending?
It's supposed to be ending at 3.
3, okay. Overtime.
You let us know whenever, because we will just keep going.
We don't want to...
Turn you into the mode of ignorance, sitting around all day doing nothing.
Or you'll be in the mode of passion, rapidly trying to do all the duties that you're behind on because we kept you late. So we don't want to be responsible for that.
The next event that we have is 6. So
Okay.
No,
Okay.
we have reading.
We
Oh, I see.
yeah, combined. Yes.
So we should maybe say class dismissed for anyone who wants to be dismissed. And if anyone wants to stay a couple of minutes more, we'll take a couple more questions.
So probably we can, if you are comfortable, to have a check-in with Jai Prabhu.
No, it's Dino.
It's back.
I
Oh, right. Okay.
see.
I just have one last question, if I can ask that.
Yeah.
No, Prabhu.
Thank you so much for allowing me.
Yes,
So,
You can find some other. No.
I mean, it's related.
Okay.
So, I found really amazing when you shared that story of Uttama Prabhu,
Mm.
that
At the
he had that pride of Australian renunciation.
Pinch, like less than a pinch. You could barely see it. Like,
Yeah. And I was amazed like how pride or ego can get into your head from even Australia renunciation, even if you're doing it for Krishna.
Actually, austerity is one of the biggest ways to get pride.
Oh,
It's the first pitfall.
wow. Good to know.
Not that you shouldn't do austerities, but if you don't do them in the right mood, then your heart gets a little hard. And then you get proud. You know, I fasted all day for Ekadasi. What's with you guys?
Actually, that's exactly what my question is. So it's like when you see someone actually getting into this pride or ego, and then you see them acting in a certain way, and then you feel like, okay, this guy is in Maya, or he's having this ego. I'm better than him, or I'm someone higher than him, because I can see him like this. So what do we do in that situation? How should we see the other person? How can we help them?
there's I just read it. I can't remember exactly how Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur phrased it, but he said rather than focusing on the faults of others, we should turn the light on ourselves.
Don't the Krishnas say, "There by the grace of God go I"? That could easily be me. But Krishna somehow gave me the circumstance where I'm not doing it, but that could so easily be me. Isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, class dismissed. Jai. Vatanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnebhyo Namo Namaha.
He's trying to make sure his check-in fits in.